Right when the company is delivering on robotaxi, energy, robots, semi-truck, and Cybertruck, some Tesla investors are concerned what might happen if the votes on the annual stockholder meeting do not go Tesla's way. Today, let's review the chances of those proposals passing, what are the outcomes we might expect, and regardless, what are the main milestones we're expecting Tesla to deliver throughout the year and beyond. We'll also watch a video where Morgan Stanley talks about their views about this vote and their views about the future of Tesla. We've got Larry Goldberg joining us. Larry is a multi-entrepreneur and he's a regular on our show. Thank you so much, Larry.
Thanks, Everett. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this. I haven't had a chance to talk about the vote with you yet. This is a big topic amongst the Tesla bulls. Some people are getting scared. Other people kind of look at this going, I've got a view of which way I think it's going to go. And I think you're saying that there's nuances, and I'd like to walk you through that. Before we do that, let's go to the Morgan Stanley. Let's watch their reaction to the vote and what they're thinking and how they're approaching this. Let's watch this video.
To our calls of the day, we're starting with Tesla. Stocks at the highs of the session up near 4%. Adam Jonas Bryn of Morgan Stanley reiterating his overweight today, wants investors to pay close attention to that June 13th shareholder vote over the pay package for Elon Musk. How closely are you watching it? Is it in any way in your mind a binary event in how you'll think about the stock?
If they voted to not give him the compensation, yes, I think that will pass. To me, it doesn't make sense that they would say no to that. So I think it would be binary if they voted no, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think also today I saw, Pepsi announced a partnership with Tesla. As I've said before, I think the next couple of quarters are going to be murky for the stock. And so as Chinese EV sales are growing but at a decreasing rate, U.S. sales are declining. It's like you have to get through this time period. And so when fundamentals are murky, you need to look at technicals. And the chart is still in a downtrend, finding a base here. And so I think 187 is resistance. I've sold calls on this position. I don't think it's going to get called away. But I think that this is going to be the year, if you don't own Tesla, if you believe in like the Adam Jonas narrative of it's going to be mobility, which is robotaxis or some type of Uber, it's going to be cars, it's energy, insurance, it's the network, then that's how he gets to the 310. I read the report.
Yeah, it's a big price target, right? 310,
right,
sorry
but it's
to
not
interrupt
this
you,
year.
310. I know, but, it's still a big jump from, where it is today. And if you factor in what you suggest could be a murky road ahead over the next couple of quarters.
Yeah, I think $64 was what he had accounted for mobility. Just like mobility, I don't think exists today, right? So I think he could clarify if I'm wrong. That's a much, much longer term time horizon. I just think this is a stock that right now is in a downward trend, murky for the next 2 quarters, but I'm bullish longer term. So I have my position. I'll sell calls and just like trade around that.
So Morgan Stanley has an overweight. They actually don't believe that the vote will be negative. What's your thoughts on that video?
I'm aligned with Morgan Stanley's viewpoint. I think that the vote will be positive. I think their price target is modest, but it depends on their time horizon. If we're talking about 2 years out, that's a fair price target. I have a higher view. I have a view of a higher target. I don't give out targets anymore. I learned that was a mug's game. But look, the bulls are very, very nervous about this vote, and they have a right to be. If this vote goes negative, it is not a good thing for Tesla, not by any manner of means. It is a very negative indicator. And, some bulls are angry, that some bulls are nervous, and there's a lot of, angst in the community, and rightfully so. This is not a good situation for the company, and it's not a good situation for the shareholders. The court had no right to overrule the will of shareholders. Now, the court said shareholders weren't fully informed, but the court is a fool. The court should have looked at the record of the conversation that took place in the open, in very high volume in the open, where all kinds of, you know, viewpoints were evinced and all kinds of statements about the independence of the board and what was the process and what were the rights and blah, 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 blah. If a shareholder was not informed, then that shareholder was deaf. Now, the board has gone to the trouble of not only reiterating what the court said, but telling people, look, you weren't fully informed last time by us, the board. We accept that. Here we're now going to fully inform you by not only giving you the court's discussion about that, but now we're going to lay it out in full, and here it is. I think the shareholders are going to support them. I think the shareholders are going to support them in full and in large. There is a large political faction in this country that is opposed to Elon Musk, not Tesla, not the Tesla board, but a personal negative view of Elon Musk. And they are working very hard to try and get a negative vote. And there are going to be people who are going to follow that particular viewpoint. So there's always a risk that they may persuade sufficient people to vote no. I don't think they'll get there. I think that the resolution will carry. I think the resolution will carry at a lower margin of majority than it did last time. Perhaps above 60, but maybe not quite the 72.8 or whatever it was of the last vote. But there's always a risk that I'm wrong. And that's what's disturbing many a bull these days, and rightfully so. So we have to face the fact that there is a possibility of a negative vote. We have to talk about that. If there's a positive vote, I think we put this behind us because it's going to be awfully difficult for the court to gainsay that.
Okay. So it's a very pivotal situation. So there's two proposals, and the first one is the re-ratification of the 2018 comp plan. That only requires 50% or more, or above 50% of votes, and it's only the votes that are cast. So that one, highly likely, it's going to succeed. You think it's going to be around the 60%? People will vote for it because last time it was 73%. So it's hard to imagine that more than 50% of voters, both institutional and retail, is going to vote for that one, saying no, he doesn't deserve it. That doesn't. It's harder to imagine that's the case. However, the other one was the move to Texas. That one, it's a harder hill to climb. Robin Denholm was interviewed by Financial Times, and she said that's like the Mount Everest, because in order to get that passed, you need more than 50%, but unfortunately it needs to be of the people who, if you don't vote, that's considered a no. And so it's like the entire, all the shareholders amount. So it's not just 50% of the people, it's like people who vote. And then the people who vote has to be more than the people who don't vote as well, including those people who don't vote. So that's harder.
Yeah, Robin is right, but if we're going to get 68% or 67.5%, which is my expectation, of people voting, that's going to be close to, if not over, the 50% mark of all the shares. But we shouldn't really get too focused on the change of domicile, because functionally nothing turns on it in the short term. Functionally, it doesn't matter if we don't get a change of domicile. The key material issue is, the Elon's pay package and his existing stock holding. That's the important component. And that's the one I think will pass. Now, there's a risk that it doesn't pass. We think it'll pass. We think we've done our homework. We think we've done the work in terms of getting the vote out. But there's always a risk. You cannot tell these things in advance. There is a faction in the country that is opposed to Elon from a personal perspective. There's a faction in the country that is opposed to EVs. There's a faction in the country that's opposed to companies that are not labor, labor union based labor. And there's a faction in the country that works for competitive automakers. Those negative votes, those negative factions are not necessarily shareholders of Tesla, but they do influence shareholders of Tesla. So time will tell. Time will tell. I feel, relatively confident, but I certainly don't blame those shareholders who are very nervous and who feel that, they need to lighten up their investment in the stock. Because there's one thing I'm pretty confident of, that if we lose this vote, Elon's leadership of the company is at risk. And it's at risk from two perspectives. One perspective is he himself will lose interest in the company. But the other side is that those people who are so strongly opposed to him, that are his quote enemies unquote, can use this as a lever to start prying him out of the company. So it's a very unclear situation, and a situation that he may just decide to get himself removed from it. And that could have catastrophic results on the company, in my judgment. It's just my point of view, could be wrong.
So I've been having this discussion with a number of people, and there was a couple of angles that to consider. One is, this idea that, okay, he loses the vote. He doesn't get his 25%. I'm out. I'm going to go to XAI. The one, Scott Walter was saying, well, hold on. The reason why he wants 25% voting control is because he's concerned about the bot becoming, sentient and being used for military or, really bad things in the future. If he wants to prevent that, he's not going to leave Tesla, because if he left Tesla, the company will continue to build bots in mass numbers. They're going to be the fastest one to build the most.
Sorry, your
Now, why
logic
would he
doesn't
leave?
compute.
Mm-hmm.
Your logic doesn't compute. If he leaves Tesla, the chances of Tesla producing that bot are close to zero, in my judgment.
Okay, well, that's an argument that I think we'll have to debate on, because it's already design locked. It's getting close to design lock. They know how to build factories. What is it that they won't be able to build? You know what I mean? So, okay.
It's not
Like,
a question that they won't be able to build it. They absolutely will be able to build
okay,
it,
there you go.
but there will be nobody driving them to build it. And
No, okay,
in
well.
this world, in this world,
Mm-hmm.
it is not the ability to build, it is not the technology, it's not the software, it's the will to build. Great companies are not built by the engineers. Great companies are not built by the financiers. Great companies are not built by the labor. They're built by all of those things, but more than anything, they're built by the will to build.
Okay.
Tesla, without Elon's leadership, in my humble opinion, will not have that will. Tesla, without Elon's leadership,
Mm-hmm.
will take a very narrow view of their position, of their finances, of their future, and will focus that future on building motor cars.
Okay.
You heard it here, and I
Sure.
could be wrong.
I think you're wrong. This is the transition to a robotaxi, robot AI company has been happening. You've been seeing the transition. He's physically making it happen. The other option that somebody was mentioning,
Against the will of several people
right?
at the top of Tesla, against the will of many shareholders, And those shareholders are the ones that will push him out. And those shareholders are the ones that will take control. And those shareholders are the ones that will focus on the next Model 2 and
Yeah, I don't think
on
so.
this factory.
Okay. Okay.
I,
We're
I've
well.
seen it in my
Yeah.
lifetime. Everybody talks about the example of Apple.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one example. It's just one example. When Scully took over Apple, he made the corporate decisions. It's the same corporate decisions that will be made around the bot, made
Okay.
around robotaxi, made around AI. We will
Okay.
see, we will see without Elon in leadership, we will see the design of a LiDAR-based
It's too late.
machine
It's too late.
within.
That's done. It's over. Like it's not going to be reversed at this point. That's what I mean by the bot too. The bot's already in Gen 3. They're headed towards Gen 3. It's not like, it was 2 years ago. Um,
Herbert,
it's already
you're a
happening.
young man.
I'm not.
You're a young
But
man.
yeah,
You're a young man. I've seen it all before.
I understand what you're saying. Okay.
Absent Elon, absent all of the hopes for Tesla.
Okay. So the other option that somebody mentioned I thought was worth discussing was the idea. Let's go ahead and say, okay, he fails those two. You're correct. He leaves Tesla. Um, all of a sudden, he doesn't care about Tesla, wants it to fall. He's got significant shares still in there. But let's say he goes to XAI. His concern is building sentient intelligence, and then he could possibly just build it in XAI and then license it to Tesla because he still has their shares there, but he controls with what happens to the intelligence. That's another interesting potential that few people have talked about at this point.
When Elon was replaced as CEO of PayPal, he closed the door behind him. He walked out and he created SpaceX. And a year or two later, he joined Tesla in kind of its startup mode. He never looked back. If Tesla disappoints Elon, there is every possibility. I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm saying there's a very high probability. There's a probability, not a very high probability. There's a probability that he closes the door and focuses on Mars, period. You may be right. It's possible. It's a hopeful possibility. But the history teaches us that when he closes the door, he walks away and doesn't look back. So that's, that's what history teaches us.
Yeah. Well, of course, at that time, PayPal was bought by eBay the following year. You know, it was
Yeah,
done.
but between the time he walked out and it was sold to eBay, he was hands off.
Okay, I'm about to show you what Morgan Stanley says since we did that video. Let's hold on a second here. Yeah, so there's definitely a possibility. Absolutely. All of these things you're saying is a possibility. You yourself said, though, it's a very low probability, but something for us investors to consider. I agree with that as well. But let's take a look what other people are thinking about this. Why would Elon leave Tesla or not? Here's the note just a couple days ago that Morgan Stanley dropped, and they're saying Elon Musk needs Tesla more than ever. And the reasoning is that, the hot thing that's happening right now, of course, is race for AI and needing, the compute. The appetite for AI to, you need capital, you need that data. We're seeing that only the mega cap companies can afford. We're talking about trillions of dollars being invested at this point in this race for compute, not just billions anymore. It increases Tesla's importance within the economy. Investors question if the CEO's commitment is less or more, we believe Elon needs Tesla more than ever before. So why? AI is a capital game. The broader collection of Elon Musk's businesses may collectively invest many tens of billions of dollars in AI infrastructure in coming years. Cost of capital is deterministic for AI supremacy. A Tesla without AI would set a precedent that would increase the cost of capital across Elon's other AI endeavors. Tesla's success lowers the cost of capital of the economy, in our opinion. Then he says Tesla's failure raises the cost of capital for the economy, all the other companies. In addition to the cost of capital, we believe on a fundamental level that the data, infrastructure built, and path to monetization within Tesla is critical to Musk's seemingly adjacent AI efforts. Data captured by the car, both inside and out, enhance AI learning and development. The auto TAM is one of the largest in the world, 12 trillion miles, hundreds of billions of vehicle hours. And the car's unique attributes, mobile server, compute, thermal, energy storage, may be seen as more critical in emerging AI-driven hybrid compute ecosystem. This last point has implication for autos broadly, not just Tesla. So the lines are blurring between phone and robot, phone and mobile AI assistant. We expect Musk efforts within social media, Gen AI, right? The introduction between Grok into the robots, the Grok into the car. These are all linked. They're all important. We would encourage investors to pay close attention to the June 13th shareholder vote. We see the June 13th vote as having significance to the long-term strategic direction of the company. While impossible to predict the outcome, we expect the event could drive material volatility in the stock. All true. But yeah, I mean, so that's their point about, yes, Elon could leave, but the reality is Elon, there's a lot of reasons why the Tesla plus the XAI are powerful together than they are, separated.
All of that's true. It doesn't alter, in my view, the calculus. The calculus is not based on a 49-51 split of probability. It's based upon the cost of that 20% probability or 15% probability, and based upon the record, based upon the dynamic of the situation, I think we have a 15 to 20% probability that if the vote goes against Elon, that he will readjust the economy. Elon has the plasticity of mind to be able to make those adjustments. It's true that he loses the miles on the road, but what he does have is Twitter or X. X has enormous reserves of data, and so that and XAI, is a world in itself. And he also has Starlink. So again, it's not a high probability, and it depends upon a failure of this vote. But the value of the vote is going to strike a very sour note in the economy, and that's irreversible once that vote is taken. That sour note is struck. Who knows, what the reverberations of that is. So yeah, I mean, I can see the optimism. I can see the optimistic view. I can see, but that's not my makeup. My makeup is to assess risk, and I do assess risk very seriously. So I have this misgiving. Of course, I would love people to vote, and I dearly hope that people vote in favor. People who are voting opposed, people who are large shareholders who are opposing the vote, are risking a great deal for themselves. And if they represent clients' money, they really need to think very seriously about the risk of their clients' investment.
Hey, Larry, appreciate it. So yeah, we've gone through the potential, what's going to happen, and I think you're thinking that it's a 60% chance that at least the 2018 is going to be ratified. Might be a lot harder for the move to Texas. You're personally think it's not as that important, or not as critical to all this. The chance that this is going to happen where Elon would leave is very, very low. we need to consider, though, because you believe that this is could be very, very significant. I still maintain that there's lots of plan Bs and Cs that, yes, the potential that you just said, a scenario is very possible. It's a possibility. Not going to say it's not going to happen. Absolutely, it's a possibility. But there's many other, ways that it can still fall out. Elon's very brilliant. He has ways to get past a lot of these things, and he might find an option that we haven't even thought through of how we could still get his control despite all this happening. I mean, who knows, right? Possibilities.
Yeah,
there. You're
Herbert,
right,
do
though.
we want to be struggling? Do we want to be struggling with plans Bs and Cs?
Of course not. Yeah.
We want
I'm
plan
just
A.
saying, we're
We
talking
want
about
plan A.
possibilities, and we already said the possibilities are low, but if it happens, there's still other plan Bs and Cs. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right. And, I would just highly, highly recommend people think this thing through carefully for themselves. I mean, these institutions that, like we saw today, a dozen small institutions or small holders. They're not small institutions necessarily. They're not very big institutions, actually, who were urging a negative vote. And there will, of course, be the shareholder proxy advisors who will all come out negative, and they were negative, and in the last vote, and they'll come out negative. But they should really think seriously about the risk to the business, about their negative votes. It's a very, very, very dangerous game they're playing.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. So please vote. This is why it's important. And we need to get everybody out here. This is critical. At the end of the day, right? If it turns out to be positive, amazing. We're well on our way for so many of these big projects, products and business models. It's all happening. This is interesting.
The
This is
future
happening
is
now.
so fantastic. We're at the brink of what we've struggled for like 5 years, 6 years. We're on the brink. Why would they screw it up now?
Yep. Thank you so much, Larry. Follow him on X. TESLA Larry. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.